Hello and welcome to another Wrestling Roundtable discussion podcast. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dadley boys of WhatCulture, Michael Hamlet and Michael Sidgwick, to discuss a big burning issue ahead of tonight's Monday Night Raw. But before we begin, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify for daily podcasts where we review Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views. We have interviews, more roundtable discussions like this one, and a round of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But gents, with Monday Night Raw fast approaching tonight, following quite possibly one of the worst episodes of Raw last week, I just want to discuss with you what on earth they're going to do tonight. Because historically, we've seen this sort of thing, that they will react to such a backlash, not necessarily in the correct way, but always in a big way. And with the big discussion centering around the fact that last week's Raw was seemingly written on the fly by Vince McMahon on the day, basically.
He absolutely no holds barred this one, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Weekend in a hotel room. I would say Hogan was missing, but maybe he wasn't. He's back at large.
It was so terrible last week's episode. That is kind of the only explanation, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
He's normally the panic button, though. Like, when this has happened before, normally it's a ratings-based decision, but Vince McMahon just basically thrusts himself back into the product again because he kind of knows his worth as a performer. But in this case, he's grossly overstated his ability, obviously, as a showrunner at this point. So normally the man that can come in and kind of like save the day for a temporary spell is the one that's knackered it in the first place.
What do you think is going to happen tonight, then? Do you think they're going to hotshot some things, or do you think they're just going to try and peel it back a little bit from the nonsense that was last week?
Without Braun Strowman being there, presumably, he's been written off. They're going to have to get heat on somebody else because they're obsessed with getting heat. If it was me, I would actually, and this is going to blow your minds, I would give Finn Balor like a really well-earned victory in which he's framed as someone who's a winner.
Come on,
because they've got no baby faces. Like, it's not just the case of, we had discussed this on the round table last week, if you want to check it out. They haven't just killed all the baby faces like through different varying circumstances. There's no baby faces left. Like, they're going to have to make a baby face look good, surely.
Have they got to now create an opponent potentially for Baron Corbin on the assumption that Braun might not be able to work TLC, or does he turn up on the night and claim an automatic victory? Is there anyone on Raw theoretically that you can build as like a safe substitute if the show arrives and Braun's not good to go?
Well, the difficulties there is they've already started dividing people up ahead of TLC. You've got Elias, you've got Drew McIntyre, you've got Bobby Lashley, and Finn Balor. They've already been sort of partnered off, those four. So you can't even just suddenly elevate one of those, can you?
No, they're not going to elevate any one of them. You know what's going to happen now, don't you?
Go on.
There's only one thing that they'll ever do tonight on Raw. And if this doesn't happen, like, I'll do something. Think by the end of the podcast, not of a punishment or anything stupid like that, but just think of something that, like, I'll get them with this. Because if they don't do Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre versus Finn Balor and Elias, have I got that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are those the two singles? They'll do a tag match. Mm-hmm. So that's your answer to this entire podcast. What they're going to do on Raw to follow up such a rubbish episode last week? More of the same. It's just a tag team match.
We kind of touched on this, I think, after a pretty lackluster SmackDown that seemed all right by comparison to last week's Raw.
I loved SmackDown in comparison.
TLC on paper is a great card in spite of itself. There is no television I want to see that's going to get us to a card in TLC which looks pretty good. So I think the problem WWE have almost is having to try and work backwards from this show on a Sunday, that if you look at it on paper and you see, I mean, if you see, say, the Raw matches, if we ignore the SmackDown side completely, because I'd say the matches are probably a little bit better on the SmackDown side, they're going to lead with Corbin and Braun, or Corbin and whoever, and Ambrose and Rollins.
Well, that's going to be great,
But even like the angle from the Corbin thing, even if you're not a Baron Corbin fan, there's theoretically some storyline that can feed into that. There's nothing about those characters I want to see before we actually get to the pay-per-view in 2 weeks' time. And I think that's a major problem. I think like everything that was sort of like set in motion before the Survivor Series and then put on hold for the Survivor Series itself hasn't been restarted in a way that is at all satisfying to me as a viewer.
You mentioned Rollins and Ambrose there. We should follow that up with what's going to happen tonight, because obviously last week we saw Dean Ambrose getting inoculations ahead of, I think they're in Houston, Texas tonight. One of the four things they pushed on WWE.com ahead of Raw tonight, two of which were Baron Corbin continues doing what he's doing and Alexa Bliss runs the women's division.
Oh,
This was the third thing I saw.
It's so awful that as well. Like Alexa Bliss, sorry to cut in. Alexa Bliss, while they've been trying to deal with the fact that she's injured, but she's clearly a very capable and talented performer with these dreadful 20-minute rambling scripts they give them on Raw. And they're basically marginalising her into being a women's general manager in something that reeks of like the Divas division from 2010. She was looking like the authority figure of the whole show when they had her in the ring. She was outperforming Baron Corbin. She was outperforming Stephanie McMahon. And they've just pied her off to one side to deal with the problems in a division that basically amount to like whatever terrible creative they gave Bayley and Sasha on a weekly basis. That's the one element of Raw that doesn't actually need any guidance, because if you just let the wrestlers wrestle, the matches would probably be serviceable. And Alexa Bliss is now made worse by virtue of this sort of, thanks very much for being made to appreciate this. This is like crumbs, absolute crumbs from the creative team that can't be arsed to give her any more than that, because at the moment the wheels are spinning on this Constable Corbin thing. Sorry.
It's all right. No, so to get back to it, we are being promised that Dean Ambrose will be there tonight because he's been all fully inoculated ahead of going to Houston, Texas.
What are you saying? What is that?
I know what are these words, man.
What, like, so Dean Ambrose, Cedric made a point last week, I think when we were reviewing Raw in general, but Chronicle was this fabulous piece of work. We've all like really enjoyed watching Ambrose, the character actor that he can be, over like a 1 hour WWE documentary. And yet this is the man that like last week was given a very Vince McMahon segment. Before we knew that he'd wrote the whole show, we knew he'd written that. Was given a very Vince McMahon segment and looked like the worst babyface version of himself again. Like incapable of doing anything but like daft.
He's a babyface prop comic, and now he's a heel prop comic.
Yeah,
that's all
right,
he is,
yeah,
and it's
right.
pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. Like I don't know what to do tonight.
He's come out and say like, I can't wear cowboy hats because I don't want to get any of your ugly Texan headlights or something like that. Just this like lame, low bar, like fan prodding comedy when we should be dealing with one of the most like powerful splits in the entire.
They've done this
about the catalyst for all this, the starting point. It was, obviously there was the terrible news about Roman Reigns, and on that same night, he turns on Seth Rollins, and we all think, well, this is started with a very exciting program, and it's just completely run out of steam, hasn't it? The match is going to be great at TLC, I have no doubt.
I hope
that's the worst thing for me, because we'll get criticised in comment sections, the internet over of being negative, when this match invariably is going to be really, really good. But for Christ's sake, you're allowed to have both. One enriches the other. Like a great storyline enriches and biggins the best matches.
I mean, the fallacy I think of our desk partner is that like we don't want to be as positive about WWE as Adam Wilbourn is about WWE. We actually do. Like this Ambrose Rollins feud. Like
Our fantasy book did?
Yeah. Like I was actually looking back at my notes through this year. We're doing year-end stuff at the moment, going back through 2018. And I found an old list about like things that the fans really don't want to, like the ball to be dropped on. And this is going back to March when Ambrose was out on the shelf and it was the eventual Ambrose heel turn. This is something we've all considered. This is something we've been waiting for because we've done the Seth one. And they've not just under-delivered on our expectations, they've under-delivered on like the performance, like the performer's ability as well. Seth and Dean, as wrestlers, as tenured performers at this point, deserve more than the creative they're being given. It's as if we're back to that old thing of the wrestlers not really being willing to fight for themselves because they've been there long enough now to not be given this crap and be sent out to just do it. Like, can't they ask more of their boss? Again, going back to Chronicle, Ambrose walks in, throws an arm around Vince McMahon and Gorilla with all the confidence of a guy that's been working there 20 years, and that he gets handed last week's segment and he just says, yeah, fine, this is my week's work. I don't get it. I don't get how what we're seeing is making air between those two guys.
We touched last week in the fallout of that shocking episode of Monday Night Raw how everything on it was so bad. That stuff that we've been complaining about with justification for ages now has been relegated. Like the Authors of Pain going 50-50 with a tag team who don't even know how to tag in. Like that was lost underneath a quite literal shower of piss. And we've reached a point now, if we're going to forecast what they could do on Raw, what they're capable of doing, not like something amazing, because we know that's completely beyond them, but if we're going to forecast something they could do, like to somehow salvage this rubbish feud, like maybe just do like an old trope of theirs, a pull-apart brawl.
Yeah.
Maybe Seth Rollins is tired of Dean Ambrose's like cowardice and lame rubbish. It would be nice if he shone a light on it and said, you know what, this is pathetic. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I expected from Dean Ambrose. I want competition on the night. I want to see the bad old Dean Ambrose, not this prop comic. And maybe this finally finally compels Dean Ambrose into a response, and then they have like a massive scrap that gets broken up with enough glimpses of the animosity between them that can make you buy the fact that, oh Christ, these guys really, really hate each other, and then separated. Like, just recycle the Brock Lesnar scripts if they can't be bothered to write it, which they obviously can't.
Well, because that's what you want to feel is real hatred, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what we're desperate to feel, because we were made to feel real love last year and them coming back together. So let's have the opposing emotion of that. It's not once been touched upon. Not
Especially
once.
because normally around this time we often accuse WWE, 2 weeks out from a pay-per-view, to sort of spin the wheels until they get to the go-home show. Whereas they do need to kind of get people back on side with this sort of thing.
It's in times like this where I hate the rigidity of WWE's like formulaic television to a pay-per-view system, because what we really have here is like Raw is a tale of two rosters. We've got half a roster that's pointing towards TLC in feuds that are so far disappointing. We've got half a roster that have nothing to do. Yet the Royal Rumble is only another month away. So if the company were a little bit less formulaic in how they looked at their entire card of wrestlers and how they were going to use them, everyone that's not involved in TLC should be pointing towards the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble the Royal Rumble's supposed to be the biggest prize of the year, and now every wrestler on that card, tag team wrestlers included, because only one team can challenge for the belts.
Never include tag teams.
Well, never include them.
Why
in
would
anything.
you? Why would you?
Only one team can, go for the belts at any one time. So surely everybody, not to use a WWE phrase, but like, I don't want to say that they're jockeying for position, but everybody should be like working with the Royal Rumble in mind, and the commentators should be talking about it, and the wrestlers should be talking about it, because they haven't got anything for TLC. There's going to be 30 wrestlers, whatever it is, that've got nothing to do on that December pay-per-view, but plenty to do in a month's time. Why is that not on the agenda now on both brands for those that aren't going to be involved in this split brand pay-per-view?
Having said all that, and possibly inspired a little bit of confidence in the fact that WWE can turn it around this week, is there also a fear between the two of you that Vince McMahon will take to heart, not that he really reads what people say online, but if he gets back to him that people felt a certain way about Raw, that he'd take it to heart and maybe double down on what he did last week?
In a really schadenfreude way, I can only hope it's as, if not more bad than last week. I'd find it hilarious.
It follows form as well. Like, if you look for like some of Vince McMahon's low bars, your head immediately goes to something like the Katie Vick storyline. And the week after Triple H threw that spaghetti bolognese brains at the camera, and the people couldn't be more disgusted, and all the sort of negative response that show got, the following week they doubled down on that storyline, and they had Triple H have like the ventriloquist dummy of the cheerleader on his lap in the middle of the ring. There was mention of the word semen on Monday Night Raw. Like nothing they did was like apologetic about what you'd seen the week before. It was almost as if like, it's you, the fans, that are the problem, so here's some more of it.
We are adding to this by, again, adding to this conversation. They will take this engagement as a positive sign, and they like being this rubbish. They think quite accurately that we're lapping it up, and we are.
I mean, we'll watch.
I mean, I'll be funny. They did, the only time I can remember this year of WWE getting like absolutely criticised, even more so than normal, for how stupid everything was on Raw, was the Bobby Sisters segment.
Yeah.
And I thought, it can't possibly get worse than this. And it didn't, but it kind of did at the same time, because they didn't deviate from the lame comedy aspects of that program. They doubled down on it by having Sami Zayn, if I remember correctly, reading words from a Titantron that were like no one could see in the arena. He needed binoculars to see them, but he read them out perfectly because it was all completely predetermined. So they did something as bad. This company doesn't get better. That's the thing.
Do you know that segment though, you name that? Like, generally speaking, there's always one segment a year of Monday Night Raw that we point to as like the nadir. And like, I think in 2017's been Bayley, This Is Your Life. And I compare and contrast that with a few years back when you had the New Day doing the old day.
Yep.
And the difference between that and the later two, the Bayley one and the Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley one this year, is the characters are no longer rebounding from them quite as quickly. Like the New Day, the following week, were almost bantering it off themselves, and we're kind of like trying to distance themselves from it and everything like that. Now, like, did Bayley recover in 2017 from Bayley This Is Your Life? No, she continued to lose and she tumbled down the card. Have Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley really recovered, like credibility-wise with the audience? Lashley went on to beat Roman Reigns on a pay-per-view. Did any of that matter? Nah, absolutely not. Like, these things now are having...
totally forgot about that.
They're having a far bigger impact on these characters, these dreadful segments. Like, we look at like this Drake Maverick thing at the moment. He's in danger of this becoming like his legacy.
That's his gimmick now.
He's the piss guy.
Yeah, like
we can say this now because they actually WWE say it within. He's the piss guy.
Steve Austin walked out of the company 2 weeks after they had him literally piss on Arn Anderson in 2002. And there's a reason why we always use him as the example for so many things in the industry, because he knew himself and he stood up for himself, and he pissed on somebody on Raw and then was gone 2 weeks later because he was asked to do a stupid job. Drake Maverick is being asked to do these things, and performers are just forced into it.
On the subject of Maverick, does he piss on somebody tonight?
Maybe.
I think definitely does.
Yeah, we had the pay-per-view, then we had Raw, so then that's the next step, isn't it, really?
Up against somebody's leg in a backstage toilet segment.
And then let's talk about something that, look, people say we're going to accuse us of being far too negative here.
I don't care. I dare you to rewatch all 3 hours of Raw last week.
Because it's not all bad news, because we get a Nia Jax and Tamina tag team match.
You're not like most wrestling fans.
Nia Jax and Tamina are going to be facing off, to be fair, against Ronda Rousey and Natalya. Any hope for this?
Yeah,
No.
Loads.
When are you going to stop?
I'll go first. So
It's Nia Jax and Tamina comprising half of a wrestling match.
Yeah,
How have you got any hope for it?
it's Ronda Rousey versus actual heat. I'll watch that. Like, I'm excited for that. I'm as excited for the singles match as well. Like, I'll take variations of this because I want to see these forces collide. I want to see Ronda Rousey and like get to Nia Jax. Nia Jax is a figure of hatred, and it's in a very cathartic way for a lot of fans that have watched on of her not get any better, and at times her get worse, and have been forced to like sort of cheer her as a baby face that is effectively a public relations exercise by WWE. This entire heel gimmick. Yeah, her promo last week was awful, but better.
She's at the top of the mountain.
Better she be a villain doing it than like Ronda Rousey's retort as the babyface. That to me was as embarrassing that Ronda Rousey was wobbling and getting as much wrong. I'd rather see Nia Jax make a complete hash of these heel stuff than I would Ronda Rousey go out there and wobble. Whereas in a match, what you're going to see is like the best of what Ronda Rousey's really good at, and Nia Jax like engulfed yet again in this heat, real. Actual tangible heat, chance for Becky Lynch in the crowd, another feud that's building in the background. It's something that I've got an interest in.
Isn't it fairly obvious what they should really do here with this match? I.e., Natalya gets taken out of it by the Riot Squad. It's a 2-on-1 against Ronda Rousey, and yet Ronda Rousey can overcome the odds, and then Nia maybe gets some heat on her next week just before TLC.
I mean, but to be honest, I think there's a few ways they could go with it.
There's only one way they will, heat.
Yeah, they'll steer into the heat on television, definitely. Yeah.
They'll get heat on that, and Ronda Rousey.
I think it's the week for the two of them to double team on Ronda, because again, a little bit of it is you've got to create this idea that Nia can actually beat her. So having Tamina there as an enforcer, like, is no bad thing for the match itself, for the drama on the night. So yeah, it probably just will be all heat. But I think it's real heat. I think that I really do. Since the Survivor Series, I've felt like for all that Nia Jax is terrible at a lot of things, she's kind of okay at being hated. And I can watch it and not just be it's not turn off WWE television for me. It's something that I'm willing to steer into.
So it's not turn off. It's very slightly better. It's car crash. So like car crash is better than turn off.
Keep staring at
we're working at. Yeah. At some point in this match, we're probably going to be asked to buy into the notion that Tamina's going to out wrestle Ronda Rousey, and Tamina could wrestle for another 50 years in the same physical condition, not like spending anything on a bum clock, just gaining experience, and she'd still be absolutely rubbish. So
over under on how many times Nia Jax kisses the old fist?
15.
I think she'll do it about 5 times.
Vince is telling her she can't do it enough. I think that's the instruction, isn't it? Like, you can't kiss that fist enough.
Reference the fact that you've got Becky Lynch's blood on your hands still, please. Let us know your thoughts on Monday Night Raw and what we got to expect in the comment section or on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And whilst you're there, you can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
Sidgwick.
You can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. As I said, you can follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. Make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify for daily podcasts. My thanks to the Dudley Boys. Thank you for watching. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you soon.
You're going to bloody need it.